Welcome to my unboxing of a very exciting product. Now, this has sort of a more value-oriented price point compared to something like a ZX series, which is 80 plus gold and fully modular and like lots of good stuff. It's really good power supply, but they're expensive. So this is the ZT series, which has sort of 90% of what the ZX series has, but at a lower price point. So it is a fully modular power supply with a 5-year warranty. 80 plus bronze is still pretty darn good. On a yearly scale, we're talking probably about $6 to $7 of difference, assuming you're running your computer at like full load, like many hours per day. You can go back and check out on my NCIX.com channel the episode I did about 80 plus gold, where I compared the cost of running a non-80 plus power supply with an 80 plus gold power supply, and I gave sort of a couple different scenarios. And yeah, the cost is not that big of a factor. As long as it's a nice high quality unit, then you are going to be getting the performance you need out of your PSU. So inside the box, we find a manual, which is actually surprisingly thick. Look at that. Okay, so it talks a little bit about 80 plus, efficiency level certification. So 80 plus bronze is 82% at 20%, 85% at 50%, 82% at 100%. Okay, and that's at 115 volt, which is what we use in North America. So 80 plus gold is about 5% more efficient across the board. But as I said before, it's really not the end of the world. However, you know what? This chart really outlines one of the reasons I tell people not to overbuy on the power supply. Because if you buy a 1500 watt power supply and you're using 300 watts at idle, which you're not, because most computers use about 100 to 150 watts at idle, you're getting less than anything on this chart in terms of the efficiency that your power supply is rated for. You're not even in the sweet spot, which is about 50%. So connector specifications, here we can look at the specifications, I suppose. Max output on the 12 volt rail is, hold on, max output, okay, hold on a second. You know what, let's just look at the side of the power supply because that is a less complicated chart. Here's a bunch of different languages, which I do not care about. But somebody does, and that's why they're there. Alright, next we have the power supply itself, and I haven't forgotten about the cables. We will go back and look at the cables later. I just wanted to see, once we get the little baggie opened up here, hey, it's got a 140 millimeter cooling fan. Oh, it doesn't? Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, so on the 12 volt rail, we can do up to 744 watts. So you can do almost the entire output of this 750 watt continuous rated power supply on the 12 volt rail, which means that no matter what you throw at it in terms of graphics cards or where you plug them in, because this is a single 12 volt rail power supply, you will get the full output that it is rated for. So I'm being a little bit ADD today, but I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put the power supply itself back down, and I'm going to go back to the box, because I just want to see if in this unboxing I missed anything. Okay, so they've got ratings for the cable lengths, which is good to know. There's that chart I was looking for. Continuous output rated at a demanding 45 degrees Celsius ambient temperature. Wow! So they're rating this power supply at a completely unrealistic temperature. And not unrealistic in a bad way, unrealistic in a good way. If this delivers the performance they say it does at that temperature, I guarantee you it's performing better than they say at a room temperature, which is going to be less, like what, about 20, 23 degrees Celsius, sort of in that range. Single 12 volt rail, we already talked about that. Premium low ESR, 105 degrees Celsius electrolytic capacitors. Compliant with ATX V2.2, okay, large temperature and load control. This is cool. So the fan on here, most fans are temperature controlled on power supplies. This one is load controlled. So what that means is your fan is actually going to start spinning faster as soon as your computer is drawing more juice from the power supply. Why is that important? Because it means that your power supply will never heat up any higher than it has to, because it's already predicting that there is more load on the components and they're going to heat up. It is cooling them before they even need to be cooled. Very neat. Alright, next we have 80 plus bronze, which we talked about already, and a bunch of sort of safety stuff, over voltage or over current, over power, and short circuit to protect your components. 5-year power swap warranty. I remember when the power swap warranty first launched. That was with the OCZ, this was before the Mod Extreme. This was PowerStream, yes, with the PowerStream power supply. So that means that you do not have endless return for repair loops. They just send you a new one. No big deal. that is pretty much it. I'm done with the box. Okay, now we're gonna go back to the cables. So we've got a big gold fat computer cable here. So what is this? Trying to find out how thick it is. Why don't I just tell you guys it's thick and it's UL certified, so it's probably safe. Next we have some PCIe cables, EPS, what's that? Yeah, that's EPS. Okay, got other more different EPS, got other more different PCIe. I'm just gonna sort these into what they are, and then we'll come back to them in a minute. Okay, so first thing we find is our 24-pin connector. So these are clearly labeled PSU, and then, like, not PSU, ATX. So that goes into your motherboard. Cable lengths, I wouldn't have any concerns with a premium power supply like this, but I'm gonna go ahead and check it anyway. There you go, you got a nice long 24-pin connector, so even if it's a sorry about that, guys, we ran out of memory. So this will be adequate length for you, whether you have your bottom mounted power supply, whether you want to go around the back of the motherboard tray and come out the front, whatever the case may be. Nice long 24-pin cable never hurts when you are building a machine. All right, what else we got? So, PCIe cables. Here, let's have a look at the lengths of these. PCIe cables tend to not need to be very long because whether you have a bottom mounted power supply or whether you have a top-mounted power supply, the distance is kind of the same. So I don't worry too much about that, but there you go. That is the length. In terms of Linus heights, it's about a xiphoid process to a top-of-the-head sort of length. All right, next we have our 8-pin EPS connectors, of which there are 2. These look like they might be a little bit short, but let me have a look. Actually, that's not bad. Okay, that's pretty good. So that's actually longer than, no, it's about the same length. Yeah, it's longer than the PCIe cable. So you should be able to reach in anything but the tallest, most ridiculous full tower case. You should be able to go around the back of the motherboard and plug into the top of the motherboard. Okay, next, finally, not finally, but also we have SATA. So we have a 3 SATA cable. Okay, so that's a modular cable. We have another 3 SATA cable. We have another 3 SATA cable, and that is it. So since those are all the same, I'm just going to take one of them and I'm going to show you guys the size, or the length rather. Okay, so there you go. They look a little bit something like that. All right, and then we've only got a couple Molex ones, but that's fine. So we've got two 3 Molex cables, and then we have, these are handy, we've got one of those Molex to floppy adapters, just in case you still have something in your system that uses floppy power. We have 4 zip ties for cable management, 4 screws for attaching the power supply to the case, and now let's have a look at the unit itself. It has a very nice aesthetic to it. I mean, obviously that is subjective, but I personally really like it. Bold yellow here, and then otherwise dark blacks and grayscales. Looks really, really sharp. There's the 140mm fan. You can clearly see the internals of the power supply itself, including the modular interface, which is very low profile actually. It looks really good. And the solder points on the back are very clean. Interesting. Okay. Moving along to the other side, you can see OCZ has thought of everything. See, look, it's right side up, no matter which way you install your power supply. So you can either go this way, and you can draw air in from the top if you have a case that doesn't have ventilation on the bottom, or you can go this way and draw air up from the bottom of your case if you do have the ventilation space. On the back, we find a honeycomb mesh, nice low restriction mesh, an on-off switch, as well as the power input. And finally, let's check out the... Oh, this is awesome! Okay, this is right here, probably the killer feature other than the load-controlled fan speed. So check this out. You can plug in, you never see this with the 750 watt models, you can plug in all 4 of your PCIe, and then you can plug in both of your EPS connectors. So you can power even super high-end boards and dual graphics cards without any adapters, because the reality of it is 750 watts is enough for most systems out there. But a lot of motherboard or a lot of power supply manufacturers give you 1 EPS socket and 4 PCIe, forcing you to either use a single EPS and 2 graphics cards, like if you have a high-end motherboard that takes 2 EPS connectors, or they make you put the other EPS into one of the PCIe and you use up 2 EPS that way, and then you only have 3 PCI Express adapters left, which means you can't do dual graphics cards. Which if you're buying a motherboard that has 2 8-pins, I'm pretty sure that unless you have a server board, you're probably going to want a couple graphics cards in there. So there you go, that's pretty cool. Next we also have, there we are, 5 modular spots for the SATA, 1, 2, 3 SATA, and 2 Molex, so you can plug in all of the included cables without any difficulty. And finally, we have the ATX connector here, which is pretty self-explanatory. So thank you for checking out my unboxing of the ZT Series 750 watt power supply. Don't forget to subscribe to Linus Tech Tips for more unboxings, reviews, and other computer videos.